Hey, let's go right to the phone and bring in a guy who is a five-time NBA All-Star. He is an NBA analyst for ESPN. He is an analyst for NASCAR races as well. He was LeBron James in Cleveland before LeBron James.
Where did
his
he
numbers retired?
Where did he play college basketball?
North Carolina.
Oh, man, we have a connection here to North Carolina. It's like an underground from North Carolina to Denver, Colorado.
And his name is Brad Daugherty. Brad, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on, guys.
Sure. Brad, I'm going to open up with this. NBA playoffs. Who threw the worst elbow, Dwight Howard or Al Horford? And are we going to hear about any suspension for Dwight Howard?
Oh, Dwight Howard's elbow was much worse than Horford's. Horford really didn't – I mean, he had intent, but it didn't really land very well, man. Dwight knocked the crap out of Bogut, so I don't think we're going to hear anything else about it. But, yeah, I thought his elbow was much more egregious than the one that the turnbuckle elbow drop that Horford tried to do. It didn't quite land.
If you were playing against Bogut, though, when you went in and knocked the crap out of him, he's an irritating dude.
He is an irritating guy, and he agitates. He really plays hard, but the game today, back in the '80s and '90s, it was a different deal. The whole game today is different, and it's not as physical, I don't think. And so I watch these little petty squabbles guys have. I think it's pretty funny. You go back into the '80s and '90s, and the Bill Lambiers and the Rick Mahorns and people like that, when there really weren't any flagrant fouls. And, guards were, when they drove to the basket, they did it at their own risk.
Yeah, Brad,
don't leave out Rick Mahorn and Charles Oakley either.
Yeah. I was going to ask you about that, Brad, because you played the different era that Stephen Curry, the game he was having, like the fifth game or something, that a guard couldn't be able to do that. After a while, they go, that's your last time in the middle. And I just think with the Detroit Bad Boys and what was going on, the game was a totally significantly different game that now nobody can send a message. You can't undercut a guy coming in.
No such thing as the Jordan rules anymore.
I mean, what does that say to you, Brad?
No, the game has changed. There's no doubt about it. I mean, like the Pistons very good, but every team will. I mean, I was talking to a buddy of mine, Kevin Willis, yesterday. And, Kevin on those Atlanta Hawks, Kevin was one of the strongest guys I've ever played against. He was incredibly strong. And, Artis Gilmore and back to Bob Lanier. And guards didn't have the freedom to roam across that lane. And you could utilize your hands, back in the 80s. That's what made Michael so good. He could come out and defend a guard. I mean, I remember Mark Price, who I played with, he would come out and put his hands on Mark and physically grab him, and it wasn't a foul. But, as the game has changed, the athlete has changed, and we went through a little period about 8 years ago, where it was the guys were having a tough time scoring the basketball. So they changed some of the rules and made it to where you can't put your hands on people, and the defenses could slough back in and play a little bit more of a zone, so that guy would encourage guys to shoot the ball a little freer. And they got the scoring back. So it's a different animal, no doubt about it, but it's still fun to watch.
Brad, we were talking about it earlier that LeBron James, in my opinion, and Mark Kiszla, we both agree this is his best playoff performance because he is hand-carrying and almost single-handedly taking the Cavaliers to the finals.
Well, I think he continues to put them in position to take advantage of what he does best. His ability and his talents are on full display, and that Cavs basketball team's been able to take advantage of what he does as the best player in the game, and that's come through in critical moments. And when he has struggled, which has not been very often, he's had good enough support from. He's got some good players on that basketball team that have stepped up and played their role. Played their role very well. If you're looking at Thompson, or even you're looking at Irvin, who's been a little bit banged up and beat up, but have stepped up. J.R. Smith, Shumpert, even Big Mozgov. Those guys have all done exactly what they needed to do every night in order to give a team a win, and then you leave it up to LeBron. You're going to have a difficult time beating him. And I picked the Cavs and the Warriors about a quarter of the way into the season, even though the Cavs started off horrendously. When they picked up the trades with Shumpert and Mozgov and Smith, it changed the whole dynamic of this basketball team. And my theory is, with guys like LeBron, you're going to have a difficult time beating him in a 7-game series. Yeah, you can beat him, in a game or two or during the regular season, maybe knock him off. But when you get in a 7-game series, his talent and ability will separate his team from yours throughout, the largesse of a 7-game series. That's what we've seen each round.
He's Brad Daugherty, ESPN NBA analyst, former Cleveland Cav. And that segment sponsored by the Lake Street Tavern. 3 bars under one roof, 18,000 square feet, 60 HD TVs, whatever you want to watch, they'll have it on.
You just mentioned LeBron, and over a 7-game series, how his talent comes to the forefront and makes his team so tough to beat. At the beginning of this playoffs, I thought there were maybe 3-4 teams had a legit chance to win the NBA title. Now it seems to me that maybe Golden State is seriously better than everybody else. Do you agree with that? Disagree with that?
No, I don't think they're better than Cleveland. I think Cleveland right now is, they're struggling a little bit with health with Cleveland. But once if they can get Kyrie Irving up to about 75%, no, I don't think Golden State's a better team. I think this Cleveland team plays well enough on the defensive end that they capitalize in transition. The thing that makes Golden State dangerous and very, very difficult is they start their offense about 30 feet from the basket. So their first 2 passes that initiate their offense are 3-point shots. That's just unusual. So it's the mindset of being able to defend out on those first 2 or 3 passes, because Steph Curry or Klay Thompson, they shoot that 3-point shot in their offense, and those teams don't do that. The 3-point shot is a result of the ball going inside and the double team dropping down and the guy being wide open. So if you can adjust your mindset to that, but I'm telling you, there's a lot in play, and going back to the day of Michael Jordan, the best player in the game, but once he gets on that stage, things swing his way. Let's just put it that way, and it becomes more and more difficult to beat LeBron and beat Michael and people like that once they get into those finals, because so much goes their way, whether it's the right call or whatever. And I do think that Steph Curry has become a wonderful player. He's going to be a wonderful ambassador. I'm so happy he's the MVP, because he's the most humble young man I've been around in 20 years. Just not full of himself. He's not the typical guy who's in that position. So I do like the fact that he may have the opportunity to play for a championship, but I think at the end of the day, you're going to have to stop LeBron. And the thing that LeBron has is he's got the ability to get to the front of the goal, whereas if you can get to Steph and rough him up and maybe he has an off shooting night, they have a good chance to lose the game. It's going to be difficult to stop LeBron from getting to the front of the goal. It's just going to be almost impossible. So he has that in his pocket.
I hesitate to say this, but it seemed to me that Cleveland never quite figured out what to do with Kevin Love during the course of the season. Do they not miss him that much because of that, or will that show up in the finals?
Well, I think that by the time they got to the end of the year, they had mapped out a pretty decent plan, and Kevin Love actually fit into the role very well of being that guy who was a really good mid-range shooter, a really good three-point shooter. So when LeBron caught the ball and was playing point forward, so to speak, the driving lanes were available, and he could always kick out to that guy who had to step in and help off Kevin Love. He could knock the shot down. When Kevin got hurt, then Tristan Thompson had to step in. He's a different type of player, more of a paint type interior player. So they had to make some adjustments, and I think they've adjusted well. The key for the Cavs to me is going to be Kyrie Irving once you get to if they get to the next series, because LeBron's going to need his ability, Kyrie's ability, to put the ball on the floor and create his own shot in order to have a legitimate chance. Because if they can get him healthy and they do that, then you got spot up shooters like Smith. You got guys like Shumpert who are capable of making open shots that when that game starts collapsing down to the ball level, they become open. So, I think Kevin Love, if he'd been in tune, I think they'd still be doing the same thing, but they picked up the pace. They haven't missed a beat. There's no doubt about it.
We appreciate your time, but in transition, I can't let you go with I wonder if you have had your dinner that Dean Smith paid for, and I miss him dearly. He was a great man. And number two, are the Tar Heels finished for the rest of their history? I mean, are they going to go away? I mean, Duke wins another championship. North Carolina's an also ran. What's going to happen with your Tar Heels?
Well, I have not had I'm not spending that. I put that in a plaque or in a frame and kept it in the letter and put that away. I couldn't spend that, and so no. I think that North Carolina this year they're going to have a really good basketball team. They should be one of the top 5 teams in the country. Duke was outstanding last year. I thought Kentucky was the best team, and I thought Duke was the second best team throughout the season. And I was looking forward. I was hoping to get to watch them play because I thought it would have been an epic battle, but it didn't work out that way. So.
Yeah, I still would have liked for them to. I wish they.
I think it'd been great. I think it'd been a great game. And so, but no, North Carolina, they've got a way to go, but I think they're going to be better next year. I think they'll bounce back in just a matter of time.
Yeah. Do you think, I just want to add to this, that the reason why I brought that up is, do you think that was Dean Smith's final sort of joke on everybody that, okay, I'm going to buy dinner for all the players who played for me, but they're not going to do it because they'd rather have the certificate than actually?
It just amazes me that he would think that far ahead, which if you know him, he always was. Thinking about, his guys, most loyal. He taught me so much about humility and being loyal, and that's just another act of his loyalty to us. Is just young kids who come along and learn a lot about basketball, but even more about life. Being around him for, since I was 16 years of age was the greatest impact upon my life, and miss him every day. He was such a huge influence upon all. And it didn't matter if you were Michael Jordan or myself or Kenny Smith or the manager on his 1972 basketball team. He treated us all equally and just loved every one of us. And I miss getting his hugs. He would always hug you around the waist. He'd clasp his hands. He wouldn't let you go. And just you try to get away from him, and he'd hang on to you. He just wanted to make sure you were doing okay. And he was always in your corner. Come heck or high water, there was one guy that was always going to be there, and that was Coach Smith.
Brad, before we let you go, last thing. As a guy who played his whole NBA career in Cleveland, how much would it mean to the city for the Cavaliers to win a title? Keeping in mind the Indians haven't won a World Series since, I believe, 1954 or 1948. It's been 50-plus years. Cleveland Browns have never been to the Super Bowl, let alone won one. And, of course, the Cavaliers have been to the NBA Finals but have not won the title. How much would it mean to Cleveland to win a title?
Well, it would be monumental, and it would be monumental for LeBron James cementing his legacy in his hometown. And, I hear that question people talk, but I don't think anyone deserves to win a title. I don't think anyone has the right just because you haven't won it, and a lot of those same fans that are applauding him now were burning him in effigy just a few years ago. And so I think the reality of it is it'd be great because Cleveland is such a good town. There's good people, hardworking people, and they've gone through some tough times, especially economically over the past. I mean, the unemployment rate's still tremendous there. So I'd like to see that happen, but if it doesn't, I hear all the people talk about it, how sad it is. It's sports, it's a game. You're trying to do the best you can, trying to win. You play for pride, you play for the right reasons, but there's also a lot of people that were really angry at him and said some nasty things and reacted very nastily. So I think you got to keep that in mind as well and move on. But I find it interesting. At the end of the day, it's just a game, and you got to give it 100%, do the best you can. Hopefully, your team wins, and if it doesn't, you line up and play the next game.
Brad, we appreciate your time. You got a Twitter handle?
You know what? I do, but I don't even use it. Man, I'm just Twitterless. I go on maybe once every 2 months. I just can't, man. I'm so old school.
That's all right.
And it's archaic, and I know it, but I just can't get a handle on social media. My kids aggravate me about it. I just can't do it.
All right.
Well, what is your home address in case people want to send you a letter?
They don't even, exactly. They know what they can do with those letters.
We'll keep following you on ESPN. Brad Daugherty. Thanks, man.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate
All right, Brad Daugherty. They retired his number in Cleveland.
He's a heck of a
5
player.
All-Star teams. They retired his number.
See, he was very interesting, and he was so interesting. I didn't get to the question I should have asked at the beginning. As a big guy, is he a Towns or an Okafor guy? I mean,
Well, let's call him back.
Call him back. Right, Twitter. Send him a tweet.
Send him a tweet or text or a letter.